Hi, Pepe. Oh, shoot. You know what? I'm so freaking hungry. Oh, I completely forgot. I want to empty a dishwasher once in a while. That's what happens when you live alone. Use this so I don't burn my hands. I'm not eating yet today. Let's see. What up? I'm dead serious though. We're definitely gonna gonna have Chat GPT literally build a file, man. This is gonna be funny. Oh, it's really too hot. I forgot I should do that with the camera. Billy. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're sleeping. Are you cozy? Say hello. They're saying hello to you. Not that you know, but. Oh, what did I just do? Oh, yeah. You gonna say hello? He's like, what are you doing? I have no idea. You want to give the microphone kisses? No. Okay, I love kisses too, but the microphone. Thank you. Why does that look all blurry on the edge? Does the camera need to be clean there, or what? Oh, I think I know why. Is it hitting? Is that what it is? Oh, yeah, it is. Crap. Wait a minute. Well, that's a heck of a delay. Well, that's most of it cleared up. Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, this ought to be interesting to build a file with ChatGPT or G. Man, I can never seem to get that right. I always seem to get it wrong. But this ought to be funny, man, because I'll tell you, I swear I'm not kidding when I say people are actually turning to AI to tune a car. Yep. Dead serious. And it is like a fat joke anymore. So, let's begin the disaster. Let me open my chat. GPT. And is it logged in? It is. All right. Let me get rid of that other screen. I guess maybe we can start with a base map on it and see what it does. Okay. Let me get rid of the screen in screen. Let me see, I guess the best way, see if I do this full screen. Oh, God, what's the best way to do this? Do I have another? That just flips it. Makes it easier for me, but maybe not for you. So let's do this. I have, what are we going to pick? We're going to pick, just pick any old type R. Do you want to do an FL5? What are we doing? Integra type S? Like, I want you guys, like, to pick, you know, what do you want to pick for? Oh, that is so confusing. It is scary, but it's going to be funny too. So, I guess we'll just start with the type R and let's go say, hello, chat. Actually, let's just say, hi, I want to create a base. Let's start with a base map. Create a base map for my 2018 Civic Type R using Hondata. So I'm going to read what it says. It says, thinking. I will walk you through how to build a safe, conservative base map for a 2018 Civic Type R using Honda Flash Pro. What not to touch yet so you don't hurt the engine. 1. Honda Flash Pro. What you'll need first, the software, laptop, a USB cable, and it says 91 or 91 octane or 93 is better. A complete list of your mods. So let's do this. All right, let's do a full bolt-on car because like we're going to keep this simple. It's something that a person might do if they had a full bolt-on car. But let's add a larger turbo just to really throw things in the mix here. Let me get this other, minimize that out of my line of sight. Where'd that go? Okay, good. That's off the screen. All right, so let's bring up Flash Pro Manager. This ought to be amazingly terrifying, maybe. Really? No, what is this thing doing? No, it's trying to. There. It was trying to write it. No, I don't want to write it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with a bone stock calibration. We're not going to do anything. We're going to use the factory settings. Okay. All right, that's all there in input. Base map. Okay, save something like this. So I'm going to save it exactly what it says I should be saving it as. I'm going to do what it says. I'm not going to click any of the check boxes. I'm going to save it. We're going to just save it to the desktop. We're going to save it exactly that. All right. Goal on full boost, 11.5 to 12.0 AFR. Wow. Well, no. Wait. No. Let's. Okay. All right. Let's start with anything. It started with AFR. Oh, say, help me set AFR tables. Let's see what it says. All right. Typically shown in Lambda, not AFR. Okay, if you say so. All right. Well, what? Most people be like, well, what's Lambda, right? So we know where the tables are, but it says Lambda here, so maybe the person could figure this out. Okay. Idle to light cruise, moderate throttle, 13.2 to 13.8, and then does it say anything else after that? 3,500 to 4,000 RPM, high torque, 0.78 to 0.80, or 11.5 or 11.8 equivalent. Okay. Most users are maybe not going to fully understand this, but it said, I'll pull it over here, it says 3,500 to 4,500 RPM. Being that most users are not going to understand this table, odds are they're going to go, oh, okay, 11.5. 4,000 to 6,000, they're going to turn around and probably not understand this table. I wish there was a way to put the table in there in the XY axis. I didn't think about doing that in advance, but my goodness. So we're going to turn around and put 11.8, right? And then at 7,000, it says we should actually put it leaner at 12.1. So what we've done here is completely inverted what the factory settings are. The factory settings at 3,000 RPM and the heavy load is 13.2. The from 3,300 to 4,500 goes from a 12.9 to 12.2. And then from 4,000 to 6,000, 4,800 goes from 11.9 to 11.3. And then at 7,000, it goes to an 11.0 in the 230 air charge range. We are literally going to invert it. So let's go ahead and go there. We're going to do exactly that. We're going to completely invert it. All right. There's no how to edit table. Select high load table. So we don't have that. So most users are going to probably ignore it. They're going to say, it says here, do a short term to long term within 5 to 10%. lambda actual equals commanded, no spikes. So it's throwing so much information out here. A typical user is going to be completely lost. Let me see if I can sit there and say, let's try this. Let me see if it'll, or, or let's see. I'm going to copy that in there. Say these settings. See what it says. Okay. Let's see what happens. So I copied and pasted the pattern, and it says, quote, the pattern you have makes sense. But there's a few things I want you to double check. If this table is supposed to be lambda, you typed AFR numbers. Okay, that's fine. Your mid-boost area may be a bit lean at 13.9 to 13.3. I'm confused because last I checked, this whole entire area is 11.5. But I digress and we'll move on. Let's go to the ignition timing tables. What is a safe ignition? We're going to do this for 91 octane. Timing for 91 octane on this car. Wait, we're going to keep specific. 2017 Civic Type R. Oh boy. Anybody enjoying this? He's passed out. Baby's tired. Baby is tired. All right. Light cruising between 25 and 40 degrees of advance is normal. So if a person were to go to a table and they'd be like, okay, light cruising, 25 to 40 degrees. Yep, it's there. Moderate area, 12 to 20 degrees advance. Yeah, we can kind of say that's right about here. Full load, 9 to 14 degrees, right? Is saying this is 91 octane, okay? So 9 to 14 degrees. So even if, so 6,000 to 7, so let's just put this at 9, right? Right? Says 5,000 to 6,000. It says 7 to 10 degrees, right? Well, let's just say this. Let's be ambitious. Let's just say, how about this? The average user is going to go, well, ChatGPT says it's safe, so it must be safe. So, let's see. From 4,000 to 5,000, it's saying, all right, 4 to 8 degrees. So I'm going to put 8. And from 3,000 to 4,000, it's saying 6 degrees. I'm going to put, what if I used 93 octane? It's saying if we were using 93 octane to basically add 2 degrees of timing to all of this. I'm going to ask everyone here, right? Who would literally put 16 degrees of timing on a stock motor Civic Type R? Who would be? Anybody want to try that? I mean, somebody want to try 16 degrees of timing on? You know what? I can think of a tuner that put that timing in the table. Dead serious. Yeah. I know a tuner that did that. But we're just going to continue on and copy and paste. And pretend like the person putting the stuff together would have any clue. Just for fun. Everything's in the red. So I'm going to sit there and go, hey, ChatGTP, do you think this is safe? Are these ignition? Oh my goodness, I can't spell. Timing numbers, okay. See what it says. Boy, it's having a hard time thinking that one out. The numbers alone aren't enough to draw a conclusion. It's important you note the context of the logs. I did. But I can't say safe just aside. It depends on where. Okay. Let's try this. These. Oh, geez. I hit the wrong ones. Control V. These are the high load. Oh, what did it do? Oh, it responded with something. Numbers with the 2, 3, 5, 8, 10, 12, and 16 and a half degrees are totally believable wide open throttle timing numbers for a stock turbo FK8, depending on RPM and boost. Oh yeah, 16 and a half degrees at the top. Okay. All right, let me get rid of this junk that I've created here. Oh, goodness. What boost pressure should I target for my 2017 Civic Type R on a base map? Let's see. Okay. It says peak mid-range 18 to 20 psi, tapering from 17 to 18 psi. Well, damn, that's about the most believable thing I've seen out all day. 23 down low, and on 93, it adds a little bit more boost. What matters the most is more than exact psi. You know this from timing AFR stuff already, but just to hammer it in, since it's not control, stays low and stable at what? AFR hits your command, IAT and ECT, not crazy high during pulls. Let's see this. Wastegate duty cycle, not pegged at 100%, trying to hit boost. Sign of trouble. Well, damn, ChatGTP, you done saved people's turbochargers here. Wow. What is a crazy high IAT? Let's see what it says. God. Let's see. What is a normal IAT? 10 to 20 degrees Celsius above ambient. 80 Fahrenheit outside, 95 to 110. Cruising. Wide open throttle. Single short, wide open throttle pull, 110 and 125 degrees is common. When it starts becoming a problem is 125 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, knock control creeping up, timing getting pulled, and power dropping off. Well, I'm going to totally disagree because we're at 93 octane, and I can promise you, getting above 100 degrees, wah, 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 it ain't going to happen. So that's an epic fail. chat. You chat GTP. You got it wrong. So we've got so far we've got apparently it wants 16 degrees of timing in the ignition timing tables, right? On 93. It wants 140-degree IAT temperature is considered safe. It's got an inverted air fuel table. This is getting great. What fuel pressure should I run? Let's see what happens here. Let's say somebody goes in there. Low side lift pump. Well, people might mistake that. And to be honest with you, it's possible, but I would think that they probably wouldn't touch it. But it does show high side rail pressure, 180 to 200 bar on a watt, and light and medium load, 140 to 160 bar. Honestly, the factory settings are pretty close to that. So some people, if rail pressure drops below more than 10 to 15 bar below commanded at watt, or if it falls below 160 bar at 100 load, stop. Okay, it said some smart things here. Make sure low side stays between 55 and 65 psi while boosting. Dead wrong. The factory ECU does not understand any sort of low side pressure variance. It is 72 psi from the factory is the target. It is a 5-bar regulator, and anything when that changes at all can throw off the pump controls. All right, so let's try this. Wait, what happened here? I lost my whole computer. My computer didn't freeze. I think ChatGTP just done crap the bed. What's going on? No. What happened here? Wow, my browser froze. ChatGTP killed my browser. Thanks. All right. Thanks, ChatGTP. GPT froze my browser. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It killed me. All right. Back to what I was doing. Making a base map. Oh, my goodness. This is comedy here. For a 2018 Civic Type R. What SOI should... Because people don't know what that means, right? So, use the factory SOI values for your starting base map. Okay, fine. It says keep the direct injected, and Honda has already optimized SOI to keep the spray centered in the combustion bowl, avoid washing cylinder walls, prevent knock and misfires, work with the factory piston crown and shape. Mistiming SOI can cause knock that doesn't respond well to ignition changes, rich and lean pockets, hot spots on the piston, power loss, and even when AFR and timing look good. So they're not wrong about the power loss, for sure. Also, they're not wrong about hot spots in a sense, but not on the piston. Actually, that's wrong. You'll get hot spots in the combustion chamber, right? Rich and lean pockets, I wouldn't really say that that's happening. Knock that doesn't respond well to ignition changes. I've yet to see, and you have to do some pretty crazy stuff for the knock to become an issue. You'd have to spray like 100 degrees out of time to do some crazy stuff like that. It's pretty, and people have said things about. I'm going to share something on that too about the SOI table. They say about cold shock the piston and blow it up. That's not true either, because trust me, I've done some crazy things with that. All right, all right. It just froze again. Yep, it did it again. ChatGPT, you're having problems. I think people decided that, yep, all right, I'm done with this. All right, I'm over it. All right. Did both my screens freeze? Like, what is going on here? There we go. Why can I not? There it goes. Boy, that really messed my thing up. Holy cow. All right. I would never in a million years run that map. My God. That's crazy and that's stupid, but I promise you people do it. And it's just as bad when you have somebody, you roll up to somebody's shop and they're YouTubing on how to do something like something simple like a suspension upgrade. That is bothersome. What is going on in here, guys? I don't know who's sitting there saying they're 700 plus, but okay. Let's see. Let me do this. I'll send this to my email, and then this way I can pull it up because it's a pain because I don't think I have. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, that's a USB. Nope, that's C. Look, even if somebody is 700 horsepower, here's a lot of things, factors that go involved in that, right? When you're picking your setup, where you make your power, how big your power band is, what tires you have, what suspension you have, what gears you have, where like all of these things, like your ratios, the surface you're running on, all that stuff's playing a role. And that's kind of why I want to get into how to spec a setup, right? Um, you know, let's say you make 700 horsepower, but your power curve comes up and rolls over within 2000 RPM. What good is that 700 horsepower? So I think one of the best ways, where let me go do this. Go to my Outlook. See if it went through. Probably not yet. Not yet. Well, that can happen. People get beat by a 500 horsepower car because they make 700 horsepower for like 400 RPM or not even. Like they, you know. Ouch. Ouch. Look, power band matters. Okay. It means nothing if you turn around, your turbo comes on at 6,000, you make peak power at 7,000, and then you lose 200 horsepower by 8,000. It doesn't mean anything, right? But if you make power from, 4,200 to 8,200 RPM and it's controllable, right? You need a minimum of 3,000 RPM of power band because when you shift, you need to be up above your threshold to keep going. So, specking a build, right? You spec something, you want 500 horsepower, and two 500 horsepower builds are not the same. I could do a 500 horsepower build on an MHI, and I could do a 500 horsepower build on an RV6, right? And if you don't pick the right components for the rest of it, none of it matters. Like none of it matters, right? You can make 1,000 horsepower, but if you only make it for, again, you're within this little, you're just a little hump and it rolls right over. If you don't have something like a sequential, you're wasting it. It's all being wasted. It is complete and utter, like it's trash. Like I hate to say it, but it's just proof, facts, and that's what it is. It's never going to change. And this is where everybody starts making these mistakes. Now, I want to talk about your camshaft, right? Say we're specking for a 500 horsepower car. Why would somebody go and buy a Kelford Stage 2 or like even a TR2, right? You know, and you pick up something like well, in a way it kind of works. You can make it work for like an MHI or but you only want 500 horsepower because you want some RPM, but now your boost has to come way down, you know? Um, it makes no sense. So let's do this, right? I can spec a build that I know will do 800 and it will rev to 9,000 RPM and it will hold 800 from 8,000 to 9,000 RPM. And how I would spec that is, and to make it simple, it's repeatable, it's usable, and basically, I would do a 35-10-50. I would do the TR3 cams, a full race pump, right? You'd have to add a little bit of methanol or something, the 2,500cc injectors, one hell of a low side pressure pump. And I don't mean no Walbro 535 because that ain't going to cut it, right? Because we're going to be on ethanol. One of my cylinder heads and a good intercooler, right? So this is going to give you right around 5,000 RPM. You're going to be crest right around 400 foot-pounds of torque. 500 foot-pounds, probably a few hundred RPM later, it can come up on 500. And if you really wanted to carry 500 torque flat for a couple thousand RPM, that's going to be a monster. All right, that's going to be an outright monster. Right, versus if I did something that came up and it just rolled right over and just spooled at 5,000 and then you're out of jam by 8,000, even that's not that great, right? Because the problem is, as soon as you shift, if you've got something that makes 800 but then rolls over, it just goes bleh, and then screams, and then bleh, every time you shift. So the other thing to think about is your cylinder head. The cylinder head, everybody overlooks your cylinder head and camshaft combination. They just go as big as possible, okay? And then they'll go and throw a turbo on there that can do 1,000 horsepower, but then they miss something, right? They go gigantic camshaft, big cylinder head, and they put it on there, doesn't spool great, but then all of a sudden, right, they don't make 1,000, right? But oh, this turbo's rated at 1,000. But then they go and they put the smallest available turbine housing, right? So if you have a 64, 66 next gen, you are never going to make 1,000 horsepower on that, on the smaller compressor cover and the smallest turbine housing available. The other thing is with the really big intake port, you can't use that on that turbo and expect it to function because the air velocity is not there. The volume is there, but the velocity is not there to give you a good fast combustion event. So how do you make up for that? RPM, your displacement's not there. Maybe the big intake port will work with a really large displacement, but the biggest displacement we have for these builds is 2 liter or 2.1 liter. We don't have a 2.4 liter. A bench CFM number means nothing. Absolutely nothing. All right. I could turn around and I could port ahead and make 300 CFM on the bench. Who's going to rev this car to 9,000 RPM to make use of that? And then you're going to need a turbo that can do that too. And the problem is 300 CFM in, you've got to get some exhaust out to make use of it. You know what? Let me see. Oh, that's not what I was looking for. All right, let's see. Look at the size of that power band. I know this might be hard to see on here. Let me do it this way because I won't be able to see any of it. But I want you guys to look. All right. It's not just about peak numbers. Look, 4,200 to 8,200 RPM. All right. I can short shift the shit out of this car and be in power. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can short shift the balls off of it and still be in power. I can short shift at 7,000 and I'm still going. All right. If I short shift to 7,000, I'm not going to be anywhere near the beginning of the boost threshold of that setup. So I could take a car because of that power band. I could have a guy that might make 100 horsepower more than me and run out of his life because when he shifts, he's waiting 3-4 seconds for boost to come back up. Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, Andy's right. And that's Klein Racing. It's right. It's absolutely accurate because if you don't give yourself enough average power band, it does not matter. If you turn around, let's say I turn around and I stopped right at where it made like just the edge of 730 horsepower, and I didn't run out that other 500 horsepower, what good is that? What absolute good is that? Doesn't do me any good. Doesn't do you any good, right? So, let me see if I have. I'll try and bring this up as a picture, and maybe this phone will let me do it because that's probably the easiest way. And is it having to send it? Let's see if it'll. And oh shoot, the black line underneath. Okay, that car is going to lose all day long, even though the power numbers were super close. Let me see if I can just. It does not want to seem to send emails. I send the email, and it's like, "Have a nice day." The funny thing is, I can just open it up separately instead of this way. And the bigger difference is in because those two cars, they're really similar. Okay, those two power bands, like they're very similar setups. Oh, thank you, appreciate it, man. That takes in that in itself. That's all tuning a lot. That's the yes. There we go. I don't know why this went right through, but um, download, open. There we go. And let me do this. And then let's see. Wait, why is it not? Oh my God, Windows, you are killing me. Why is it doing it like this? It's not giving me the bottom of it. So I can see there. Okay. Let's see if the mouse does what I want it to. Okay. Let me. Why is this not? That's not what I want. This is what I want. And then I want to do this. Okay. I think this is the. All right. Maybe zoom in a little bit more. Actually, let's do it that way. Yeah. Alrighty. Nice and big and zoomed in. So, even if I manage to match some of this in the mid-range, which I was not able to do here, there's a couple things. That weird little dip is interesting there. That's not really relevant. We can see both these cars had G3900s. Both these cars had TR3 cams. Both these cars had Rampage kits. Both these cars had the custom intercooler kit with a 3-inch cold side pipe and a 2.5-inch hot side pipe. The literal difference between, and the black line is 33 psi, the red line is 32 psi. Both of these graphs are pictured as an uncorrected, and the literal difference, had I carried the other one that I had done, the red one, the 32 psi, all that mid-range is in cylinder head. Now, maybe had I continued to keep going, eventually the black line might overtake the red one. Might. Or it might not. It might just be back pressure to the point of loss of ignition timing. No one really knows, because I'm not trying to destroy this guy's stock transmission. That was in the other one. But I can tell you the boost curves are within half a, up top, they're identical from 6,500 on, minus the fact that mine was 32 pounds and his was 33, and mine was, but in the 5,500 RPM range, I think there was like half a pound of boost difference. They're both 2.1 liters. And this stems from speccing your build. And that's where, oh, give me back to my screen what I want. That's how you're speccing your build, right? That's what it comes down to. You need to spec your build and know the parts that you're putting on. Grabbing a random cylinder head, regardless of CFM, is not going to help you. If you turn around and take that large, and that was intake port size, that long, later power band intake port size, maybe that would work with a skunk tube manifold. I don't know, right? Got no clue. I'd say not likely, because the skunk tube manifold, the larger plenum volume, the shorter runner, slows down airspeed. Absolutely slows down airspeed. So the skunk tube manifold tends to bring air into the port just in general down the whole length of the port. The factory intake manifold tends to curve it to the roof of the port, and because if you look at the design of a factory manifold, that's what that does. So when you are speccing a build, you need to think, am I going to put big camshafts and all this stuff, and am I going to use a stock turbo to get this done? No. Can you use camshafts and a ported head on an MHI? Yes, but you need to have the really big difference in efficiency area, right? It's all about what I'm doing with my car. So turning around, I could take one car, make a much smaller port on a turbo that's got more of an exhaust restriction, but has a lot of compressor map, and make a lot of power early. I can do that, which is something a 6466 does really well. If you take a cylinder head that has a lot more CFM and less airspeed on it, and you don't make a whole lot of changes somewhere in the mix to try to make that work for you, like opening up the exhaust, you're not going to make the power you're after. You're going to choke it, and you're not going to, because if you can't get fresh air in, you can't, if you can't get exhaust out, you can't get fresh air in. It's like really just a simple thing. And you can start blaming a whole lot of other things and reasons for this, that, but at the end of the day, like the 4-piston heads, they work with certain setups, right? You like Garrett turbos are really good at doing a lot of RPM. They are. That 9-blade turbine, when you spec it, it works well, right? But at precision, they really come up on back pressure really hard, really fast. And if you don't and I don't know how their internal gate housing is either. It might be worse. I don't know, but every time I've ever done it, that's what it is. Now, I did do a 6466 setup with a Prackworks manifold and a Kelfer cam before the full race pump, before I had port injection. All I had was an XDI pump. And my cylinder head was very specific. And let me see. I'm going to have to go way back, though, because it's been so long since I've done that. But I want to point something out. And I use really conservative timing because I didn't have the ability to put a whole crap load of fuel in it, right? And I wasn't about to torch the engine or a cylinder head. Well, the whole goal, though, also with a turbo, I should mention, is to put as much through the turbine wheel as possible. If you can do that, then that usually means high efficiency in power. Most of the time, when you can put as much through the turbine wheel as possible. Where is it? That's not it. Let's go back. That's not it. That was the G3900 run with the 92 AR. Wow, man, this is going way back. Come on, Instagram, load. Ah. All right. Where is it? Here. I don't know if I can I zoom? Nah, it won't let me zoom that. Okay. I wish I could, but I cannot zoom that. I want to point out, right? I had about 13 degrees of timing in it here. But we notice there's no roll, not a lot of roll off. Now this is, 15 degrees peak timing. Peak. All right. Oh, that's right. DI only. I thought I put meth injects on it, but I guess not. That was squeeze. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot to squeeze out of it, but 717, and it was down in the lower RPM range. It was at 7,200, but I didn't come below 700 until 7,700, and I wound it to 8,300, and it still only went from 717 to, looks like, about 675 at 8,300. It came up to, I usually do my crest point for 400 foot-pounds of torque. It came up to 400 foot-pounds of torque right at, looks like, 4,400 RPM. So that car had power from 4,400 to 8,300 RPM. And if I shifted out at 8,300, you usually fall back around 62. And if falling back down to 83, I would have been at 675, falling back down to about 600 and looks like 630-ish. That's spec in your build for what you're doing, right? But the thing is, I know that, yeah, I could probably make more power on that, but what's going to happen is it's going to, it's not going to be very usable, right? Or it's really not going to be usable. And then you're really going to run into a situation where Packworks one is worth the amount of money. Here, let me go back to the questions. Anyway, I think you guys get the idea on how to spec a build. Yes, the Packworks manifold is worth the money, but it's setup dependent, right? Like if you want 9,000 RPM, bro, you're picking the wrong manifold. So here's the thing. One of the things that with like TR3 cams, you kind of lose some airspeed from having a larger cam lobe. So what you can do is you kind of offset with that. Like, so let's say you get a setup and you don't have the airspeed, you can make up for it, right? That cam was at Kelford Stage 2, so you know, on that 64, 66. Yeah. It's all mid-range power, you know? It's worth the money when you're after mid-range, for sure. Like, you got to think about it. Like, I think where I made 560 foot-pounds of torque, it was at 26 pounds and like 13 degrees of timing on that one. I was trying not to make gobs of torque because all that torque is literally just going to smash your engine apart. Like, that's what kills everything. And I tried to make more usable average power on that one. It was 30 psi, and literally, I want to tell you, with the cam timing, I made a very simple, mild adjustment in the cam timing, and I gained 60 horsepower on that manifold with just some cam timing changes. It made the cylinder head happy. Here's what people do not understand. When you want to fill the cylinder, you have to fill the manifold and you have to fill the cylinder. If your intake port is lazier, there's a good chance in order to bring the torque up, you need more overlap and you'll need to, in this case, advance the intake cam. Okay? If you're after more RPM, there's a good chance you'll need to retard the intake cam and open it later. If you have back pressure problems to a point, it might not work at all. It's all setup dependent, right? So if you do something like switch an entire cylinder head and this cam timing worked before, it might not work after. It might be way off because changing your cam, changing your cylinder head and your intake port is just as big of a difference as changing your entire intake manifold. And that's something that people really overlook. They just don't think about it. So, I mean, I'm sure the Skunk 2 manifold works if you do like 9,000 RPM. I'm sure it does. But I didn't find any gains, and all I lost was a bunch of mid-range. And I really want this video to show up because I did a third gear little momentary yeet, and I just started laughing so hard because, well, one, it was funny because send. Oh, well, oh, that's why it wouldn't go. Okay. Got it. Oh, you know what? I forgot to plug that in. That's going to make that die. Oh, man. There we go. All right. Sorry, the microphone. I don't know why it did that. Yay. All right. Fixed. Yay. Oh, no volume? Maybe you guys can hear it, but I can't.
What a waste of their gear. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Let's see. Hopefully we don't get a bad echo.
What a waste of their gear. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Were you guys able to see that? I hope you were. All I could do was laugh at that. Like, literally, like, what do you do with that? Other than laugh at it? I mean, shit. Just, I mean, bro, that's not 800, right? It's not 800 at all. It's not even close to 800, right? And you see, it's just like, no, not happening, bro. And I have PPG gears, so my third gear is like long, right? Like 110 miles an hour in third gear at 8,000. I forget what it is, but man, like at the end of the day, bro, like it's crazy. Actually, those were my R888s, man. I mean, I forgot to air them down to like 22 pounds, but and they usually stick. But I was driving around. It's not like it was ice cold out. It was 64 degrees. It's a third gear waste. I couldn't. I need to put look. In order for me to do that, I needed to put slicks on. If anything, fourth gear. So when you get to the power level that I showed the graph of earlier, fourth gear is way more fun. I know it's kind of crazy if you haven't quite experienced it, but it'll hold in fourth gear for sure, right? Because the torque was, well, yeah, it's gonna hold. It wasn't crazy. It's like 510 foot-pounds. And at 4,400, right, I was making 450. So it should make it pretty manageable. You know, and what stinks is, I think the microphones are doubling up now. What really stinks is that I can't do a good 60 to 130 with the car anymore. Like the gear ratios for PPG are just garbage. Complete and utter garbage. Now, what it is good for is if I would do 100 to 150. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to do a 100 to 150 run. And being that, you know, the car is capable of going, I could probably still bring it to like 8,800, you know, around there. Let me see this gear. Calculator. So 4.1. I believe it's 25.6. That other microphone keeps turning on and off. 1. What is that? All right. 8,500. Actually, no, it's 8,000. Yeah. So if I were to go to, let's just be on the safe side, 8,200, and let's just say the tire's shorter for some reason. Yeah, that really doesn't seem to have much of an effect because I'm on a 275 tire, 275 4017, 8,200 RPM.
is 152 in fourth gear. And let me see, what's 5,000 RPM? 92. Wow. That's up higher than I thought. So 5,400. So yeah, the car would be an amazing car to do that kind of crazy ass, 100 to 150. Because that's the PPG ratios. And PPG, FK8, what is third gear? This is where everything goes south. 1.364. Okay, so 1.364. This is where it all goes south. So third gear is not going to make a ton of jam at 4,400. The graph, not that one. Crap, where is it? In third gear, I'd have to probably preload it. And the problem isn't necessarily that. The problem is right here. 8,000 RPM, 108. Okay, I've used all the power in third gear. So I got to get back to 108. So if I do this, 5,800. So 5,800 is 107. So that's about where it will fall to. So what did I say RPM wise? Shoot. 5,800. And at 5,800, I'm following all the way back down to 550 horsepower. So I took a car that made 730, and then I fell all the way back down to 550 horsepower on the shift. And it makes it absolute dog crap for 60 to 130. All right, so, okay, Vegas. So the graph 3.4 is a nice, I believe the fourth is 1.14, but the third gear, it's longer than the standard one, so that's really going to kind of sway in your favor. If I had it like a really short fourth gear, like, let's hypothetically say I had the graph fourth gear with a PPG third, which is really strange. But had I had that, what would happen is the graph is 1.14, right? Where would I be to get back to the 108, right? Wow. Holy cow. I'd be at like 6,700 RPM coming back in off the shift around 6,700. Yep, 6,700 RPM. And instead of being at 550, I would be at 650. So I'd be coming back into power at 650. And that's the name of the game when it comes down to 60 to 130. Like, yeah, that's where I'd be back at. So if you're looking here, a 108 with a graph fourth 1.14, and here you are. I would be at 6,700 RPM up here at, in this case, in the 650 range, instead of all the way down at the 5,700, which is about 540 to 550. In order for me to push that up to make that difference, I would have to take the torque in third. So I need to get back up to 650 at 5,700. I would have to put, wait, what did I think it was? Wait. Times 5,700 divided by 52. Wait, 52. Nope. 570 times 5,700 equals divided by 52. Nope. Oh, I'm gonna reverse it. Duh. 650 times 52 equals divided by 5,700. I'd have to put 600 foot-pounds of torque. I'd have to put 600 foot-pounds of torque into it to get back to that. There is two different fourth gears. There's a 1.14 and a 1.09. The advantage to the 109 is if, like, you want to keep it a little bit more length to the fourth gear. You want to make sure you run past it. Let me see. Maybe, because SES is the one who sells them. Graph fourth FK. I don't know if he lists them. 1.14, there's the fourth. Can't see it there. Does he have the... I cannot see it. That's the... No, that's a higher gear. Because you don't know which side I'm looking at. That's the higher gears. Higher gears. Does he have them down? Oh, here they are. Here they are. Third, 1.41. So the third gear is 1.41 instead of 1.529. So 1.41. Let's say at 8,000 RPM. That puts me at 105. But where does my start my 60? So your 60 starts at 4,500 RPM. So there's good and bad to that. The good is that you're not going to initially blow the tires off. The bad news is that if you're not trying to get into some jam, you might hurt your 60 to 90. There's a lot of that races won in that 60 to 90 range. So you can see here, 4,500 RPM. This is with a 25.6 inch tire, which is, I believe, a 265 3518 comes up to 25.6 and a 1.41 third gear. Now, the disadvantage to the graph, though, is going to be that with the graph gears, you are going to end up with the what you call it? What the hell is the disadvantage of the graph? The third gear is you need the converter. I think SES makes a converter for it to run it on Honda. If you're on Motec, it's whatever. You know, no big deal. Man, that's a hell of a delay in the stream. Did I lose the stream? Wow. On my end, it comes back really late. And I'm trying to look at my own stream. It's really weird. So. What? Oh, man, that is the most... Man. Look at that face. How do you make that face? Can you please teach me how to make that face? Because, damn, if I could walk into a restaurant and lean over like that and look at a girl like that, I'd take one home every single time.
Judy, baby. What? Thank you. Oh, God. Well, I'm just about tired out, guys. If you have any questions, I like the graph gears. Um, yeah. Do you find you can pull extra out of a build when tuning on a dyno versus tuning on the street? Absolutely. That is a good question. Can you get more power tuning on a dyno? Yes. I did a post about explaining why you cannot maximize a setup on the street. There are so many things you cannot see in a data log, right? One, there's one of the biggest things you can't see is going to be manifold filling and cylinder fill timing. You can get a car to come up and spool, sure, but the cylinder fill, like your intake cam timing and the combustion coming out of the engine. At lower RPM, the combustion is slower. This changes your exhaust cam timing, and at higher RPM and higher boost pressures, your exhaust cam timing needs to generally open earlier because of the faster combustion speed. You want the exhaust out to get the air in. Now, so that's part of it. The intake cam timing, you're dealing with, there's no way to tell from where the air enters the actual throttle body and the time it takes to fill the whole manifold, come up to the end of the runner, and where that valve's ready to open, so you get a good clean rush of air to fill the cylinder, plus the general cylinder volume. There's that. That's part of the equation. You can see knock, and that's fine, because I can promise you, though, you can't feel, when you get into the neighborhoods of 650, 670 horsepower, you're not going to feel 20, 30, 40 horsepower on the seat of your ass. You're not. It's impossible to tell. There's a lot of other factors. There are things like VTEC crossover, people will argue that. However, you can generally, that can be tuned when you're looking, because we have certain things that we can see on the data logs on modern cars versus older cars, you can tell. Like the wastegate style is part of the equation, and electronic wastegates give us clues and hints we couldn't normally have. The other thing is the comport airspeed and stuff, ported head versus non-ported head. That's going to change it. Your turbo size is going to change it. Your intercooler efficiency will literally change it. Like if you have a shitty intercooler versus a really good one, that's going to change it. There's just too much stuff that changes on the street. I just did a tune recently, had somebody come over and rent a dyno recently, and they picked up like 20 horsepower in mid-range on a 450 horsepower regular Kuro turbo car, okay? They're going to feel that. You're going to feel that. You can never make a torque curve like I did on that graph tuning on the street. It's never going to happen. Never. Now, once you've got things optimized, then you could take it to like the drag strip or the street, and now you can optimize your tune for your 60 to 130. It's backwards to contrary belief. You don't street tune first unless you're just doing drivability. You dyno tune first, and then you can dial in the faster portion on the street for like 60 to 130. What makes your E30 different from variables in stage 3 and leaning towards grabbing yours instead? My E30 tune, first of all, it's not like variable uses a lot of like standard cam timing for every car. They use a lot of stuff that's based off of Honda base maps. I have little tweaks in there that makes the difference, how the power comes in, how linear it comes in, how the power carries. I don't, like a lot of the variable tunes, a lot of the other tunes, they come up with this big spike and then just do this. And that doesn't do the car any real justice as far as making power and power throughout the RPM range. A lot of these companies use a lot of these base map, like initial starting points, and they just crank up air, change the air fuel, crank the boost up, throw ignition timing at it. I change everything from cam timing, SOI, ignition timing, air fuel ratio, boost,
even fuel pressure command to optimize it for each setup. Blowing coal isn't. No, not all the time. Can anything from BMW Bosch tuning be adapted to Type R? Same head design, DI, and other tuning software. Well, the cylinder head is completely different. It's not even remotely close to the same. However, a lot of the concepts are the same, like your injector advance and all that stuff. That's similar. But like dealing with it, if anything, the closest thing is Volkswagen. That's the closest tuning software. So your Audi, and your Volkswagen. So I've done Volkswagen before, and I've done it through Eurodyne, and the software is like a mirror, right? So basically, because of all between the Motec and everything else that I've done with the direct injection, like if you handed me an Audi RS3, let me have at it, bro, because it's going to be simple comparison. Because I know a guy who does them, he goes, bro, the Audi RS3 is easier to tune than an FK8. So, because there's all sorts of little nuances that we deal with. Greater internal fuel system being wanted to have a retune on a dyno. Definitely going to set that up soon. Yes, and that's another thing. Like, maybe like on the street I can give you like, okay, this power curve is safe, sure, but maybe your setup I can take your power curve, right, and you got a torque that comes up and makes 430 at 4,500, but happens to roll over at this point, or it comes up and has a torque spike, right? We can take that and I can try to forcefully extend that curve by manipulating the boost curve and make it just better. The car is going to feel better, more linear. It's going to put down the power better. You're not going to just blow the tires off, because blowing the tires off isn't always a good thing. It's fun to do, but it doesn't go anywhere. I want to say this. Another thing I should mention too, because we had touched on the street tuning. You can't take one cam timing and say these camshafts like TR2s and this works for every car. I see way too much of it out there. It does not work. It can get you kind of close, sure, but I've seen. Okay, so here's a prime example. On 23 pounds, my exhaust cam timing is 10 degrees difference, and this is at the same RPM from 7,000 to 8,000, is 10 degrees difference between that and 30 pounds. And that's just straight from combustion event. Because if I don't open that sucker at that high boost pressure, I got so much back pressure, it's disgusting. What are your thoughts on Precision Turbo's new drop-in upgrade? That's an interesting question. So here's the thing. The one turbo they're saying the size of the compressor wheel is way too big for the compressor housing. When you jam a big compressor wheel and a small compressor housing, what you get is a lazy turbo that does not reach its capability of the compressor wheel. I've seen many of the turbos, the drop-ins that go from this Garrett 660 size up, try to go up to the next size up, and it's literally a 30 or 40 horsepower gain, and that's it, because your compressor cover size limited. You need the ability to have the bigger housing. A G25 660 does not have the same size compressor housing or turbine housing as a G3770. So if you were to take a G3770 and jam it inside a G25 660 turbine and compressor cover, it's just not going to make its capacity. Could I limp my car over from Knoxville over to you on a built-in tune from Honda? Hypothetically, yes. If you're just driving it there, A to B, yes, as long as your injectors and stuff like that are set. You have something like camshafts in the car, I'm going to tell you no. But as far as like turbocharger, as long as your fuel system components are correct, and you're not running something like an aftermarket camshaft, and all your basic buttons like your MAF sensor, your injector, your high pressure pump selection. As long as all those things are correct, the car should drive just fine. Just driving from A to B. Explorers went very aggressively for so. All right, Metal XPL, take it easy, man. No, in terms like can you rank the best to worst drop-in turbos for CTRs? Now I'm gonna have to kind of. That's a good one. I thought about doing a whole video on that. All right, I can't rank all of them as good as I would like to. Okay, I'm gonna give you. I can kind of because one thing that plays a factor is the manufacturer's ability to make things right when things happen to go wrong. But here's what I'm going to say. Let's start with what I feel is the absolute worst turbo out there. The P700. Compressor is way too big. The turbine wheel is too small. Doesn't matter if your motor's built or not. You're just going to have tons of back pressure because you have no leverage on the turbine wheel, no space between the turbine blades, and a big compressor wheel you're dragging along. I would have to obviously rate that last. I would have to say, now it'll make more power than a standard Kuro. The standard Kuro, which I would put next in line. I could put those next in line only because they just don't make as much power. And yes, they make a little more horsepower, but believe it or not, the standard Kuro makes 40 to 50 foot-pounds torque less than a factory stock turbo. So I wouldn't really call the regular Kuro an upgrade. So I definitely would put that next in line because on a full fuel system to only make 400 foot-pounds of torque, barely, it's kind of like, now, the Kuro Plus, I haven't really tuned one of those exactly yet, but my thing is there's a guy out there, yes, he's got a great 60 to 130. The problem is he starts on a downhill run. He's on tires that you have to do like 3 burnouts to get him to stick. The car's in negative 800 foot DA. I don't know if it really can pull that off in the summer. I'm going to go to what could you do not flat foot shifting in the summer. And from my understanding, that car was high 7s, like in an LFL5, which is a 1-gear shift. If you were to put another gear shift in, it makes me feel like the Kuro Plus would be no any better than an MHI. Because I had a couple customers on an MHI doing 2 shifts in an FK8 running 8.3 seconds. So I would have to place, I don't know where I'd put that. Now, as far as reliability, I would not put that in the same page as an MHI. I will put the MHI above the Kuro Plus for that reason alone, for sure. Next in the line, I'm going to put the RV6 drop in, right? That is going to be above those two. Now, could I say the RV6 is as reliable as an MHI? No. But Rich is an awesome dude, and he takes care of situations that have that deal with nothing that his company did, and he'll still take care of it for people, which is much more than I can say about a lot of other companies. Why did my phone? Oh, there it goes. So, oh dang it, I lost there it is. Let me see. Now, what else is out there? The Pure 500, bro. Put that right down with the P700. Yes, it makes power, but they nuke themselves. What else is out there? Man, did I miss any of them? Shoot. Now, if we were to put the only thing that I don't know, like, I can never say that the Kuro, yeah, well, R660, I said. I did say the R660. That's, well, the anti-surge, the difference of the anti-surge, you trade off a little bit of top end for a really good mid-range additional And what was crazy was the Kuro that was on that dyno, was on the dyno. Like it was on the dyno here. It didn't spool any better than an R660. It was no better. So don't ask me what all the hype's about. So, um, let me see. Let's go see. Let me see what if there's any more. FK8 drop in turbo. What else is out there? I don't know about that eBay turbo. No idea. Pretty sure it's a piece of junk. Oh, PLM. That's another one I kind of got no idea about. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I've never had any really good, like, Vargas turbo has been like, meh, but nobody runs it, so I haven't seen any really good reliability or dynos from there. The PLM turbo, I don't know if it can make 500. I have no idea. Um, I'd still have to place those below an MHI or an RV6. I would say, like, but if you're going to ask me for two recommendations, and one of the reasons I'd also put the RV6 over the Kuro, I'll be damned if you put a Kuro Plus on a ported head and cam motor and wind that sucker out to $8,000 and still make power. Spoon? Yeah, man, Spoon, that's bro, you might as well put that Spoon turbo right next to the standard Kuro. And that HKS, God knows. PLM is a pure turbo, just look at their part number. Okay, well, that answers that question. The HKS turbo, I heard about that. That's the HKS FK turbo. I'm going to rank that below an MHI. Because I really, as far as, I don't see any sort of realistic increase in volume. I'm going to rank the HKS below an MHI, but probably maybe above a Pure or a PLM and a regular Kuro. So I think the biggest players, though, are in there right now are going to be Kuro Plus, the RV6, and the MHI. I still think those are the biggest players. I still like the MHI a lot also because I did do ported head and cams on it, and it turned around and basically I went from, because you got to be like 32 pounds of boost to make 500 plus on an MHI stage 2. And with the ported head and cams I did on Carlos's car, it made 545 from 6,800 to 7,500 RPM, but I only had 25 pounds of boost in it. Because if you look at the turbine flow chart on an MHI, man, like when you start putting more boost at it, you can't get RPM out of it, right? So, let me see. MHI. Let me go to Full Race's website because I think they have the documentation. No, wait. Where is it? There's a turbine map. It's a turbine expansion map. This is something that I like that not many companies do. Oh, you bugger. Why does it do that? I want the bottom. If I open this up all the way, why can I no longer get the window screen? There we go. Okay. If we look, expansion ratio, okay? We see this black line. This is the updated MHI on the right-hand side, this big fat curve. Right here. This is 1 is 0. This is atmospheric, technically. 0.5, 1 bar, and then 1.5. So right here in the middle is the highest exhaust flow. Anything above that is going to create back pressure. So if you turn around, so we're looking at like 1.25, 1.25 times 14.5 is 18 psi. Now you can creep that up to about 2.6 bar, which is actually 1.6 positive. 1.6 times 14.5 is 23.2. I stopped at 25 because anything past 25 didn't make any more power. So right about here is about where I stopped, where I couldn't get any more out of it. I was maxing out, not the compressor wheel, which is wild, because I was actually maxing out the turbine side. I was running into a back pressure wall. Just like I was running out into a back pressure wall on my 900. That's what, if you go back and you look at my, on my IG, which I think this is wild. If you really look at the video, when it comes up, let me see. When I click the page for the boost, oh man, I really hope you can see it. Wait for it to come back. Start over. There's the knock noise. Look at the wastegate. It was just kept going up, like opening more and more and more and more. And what that kind of is an indicator to me is that what I was actually getting was back pressure. Because yes, I put another pound of boost in it, made more power, but the fact it's coming up and going plateau says back pressure. Now, here's the catch though. Why did the 4 piston head RPM seem to RPM a little better? It's combustion event, heat and speed. That's one thing I should mention. A slower intake will also have a slower combustion event, so you're not going to have as much combustion event speed, so you might not get as much back pressure from the heat. Let me see about fuel system. Right. What would be the best ideal setup in terms of, oh, and fuel system for 500 wheel horsepower? I didn't catch that. So MHI stage 2. I don't know if we're talking FL5, FK8. I like if you don't have FK8, this is simple. MHI stage 2, Mishimoto intercooler. You can use my fuel system I sell on my website with my 1450cc injectors and PRL intake and NVIDIA R400 exhaust. The Mishimoto intercooler, I think I mentioned, and a DW300C low pressure pump. That is a proven, repeatable, any dyno, anywhere, 500 wheel horsepower. I prefer a catless downpipe. You will lose power, catless versus catted. And that's a good setup. That's a very good setup for 500. Super reliable. You know, and I usually on that particular setup run like 50% ethanol. You don't need a ton of RPM. It can make, if you want it to, you can make gobs of torque. I don't really like putting a lot of torque in there on that past like 430-ish. But yeah, that's a good, super reliable setup. Simple. If you want a lot of RPM, you switch out my 1450s for 2000cc injectors and put an RV6 in it. And now we're going to take that same setup. We're going to make, I want to say, another 20 or 30, but we're also going to gain 600, 700 RPM of power gain. Because instead of rolling over at 6,800, it will carry flat to 7,600 RPM. No, I'm not running no 2000cc injectors. 2000cc of meth. Maybe with water mix, but no. Or you want to make 1,000,000 horsepower and do what all those crazy fools do and put M5 on it and see if you can't burn something up at the same time. You know, or do crazy high compression. I should mention this. None of my engines and combinations are high compression at all. The biggest bump in compression is going from 9.8 to 10.5 to 1. I don't do 11 and a half, 10, 12 and a half, 13 and a half to 1 compression. None of my setups and the power numbers that I'm saying are any sort of high compression stuff. That's another thing, guys. That's going to change your total setup. Like it really will change your setup a lot. Well, Bob, if you're only going for 500, man, what do you need cams for? Let's put it this way. On an MHI, I would probably stick to a TR2. For anything bigger than after that, I go to TR 2.5, but you cannot run TR 2.5s on stock valve train. I did the initial testing for the TR 2.5s. So, yeah, that should say a lot. A lot of people, it's funny because, a lot of people say a lot of things about me. It's kind of funny, but yet here I am. I do all this testing. I tested low. I was the first one to bump compression to 10.5 to 1 like 2 years ago and try it. It was pretty funny. And then everybody else followed suit. I did matchless tuning. Everybody else followed suit. Man, it's funny. Everything I do, everybody follows suit. So I'm not going to tell anybody anymore. I did something to my most recent engine, okay, my combination, and I am told like 3 people on the face of the planet, okay? I am keeping this one. I'm going to take this one to the grave. All I'm going to say is it works. And with the G3900, wasn't really a power gain for particular reasons. But let's just say if I throw a bigger turbo on my car, like the 351050 I have sitting in the back, oh boy, is it going to work. Well, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. I know people like to put drama and pass the blame, but like, the matchless tuning, changing compression, porting intake manifolds, porting fuel rails, upgraded low pressure side deaded system, like everything, man. I mean, it is what it is, man. I don't care anymore, man. I'm so over all that junk. Port injection is something. What do I think of port injection? Here's what I say. I heard JSR just blew another one up, man. Just literally, that's what I heard. I don't know. So, yeah, Andy is right. I'll get the itch eventually. So, what do I think of port injection? I think port injection has no place on a stock port head. Okay? If the only way you're going to get around stock port head and make power is big compression, which I don't think is a great idea because a stock port head barely wants to take any timing as it is. You're asking for a bomb because the airspeed's so high. You actually force lean spots. Like, they burn so fast that it's like, if you got a lean spot over here, it's like, poof, it's going to go right into that lean spot. And goodbye. I'm not really a huge fan of stock port head, but with the port injection, that makes it even worse because the more airspeed you jam in there, the more it's going to just throw fuel against the cylinder wall. So with port injection, it's really a good idea to have some type of ported head kind of get the air to make the turn, because the air's not going to make the turn down into the cylinder on port injection with the stock port head. Especially the faster the airspeed, the worse it gets. It's doing port injection on a stock ECU. I definitely am not that's not a huge thing. I don't think that's a great idea when I've made 780 on DI only at 8,800 RPM. And how can I prove that? Because I had the full race pump, 2500s, and 1,000 cc of meth on the car, and made 850. 1,000 cc of meth is not worth that much power. It's not when you're using it for just fuel. It's not even worth 100 horsepower. So that should tell you. Yeah, well, the pump was maxed out at 73% ethanol. That's just what it would have. Like if that was pump fuel too. By the way, that's another thing. I'm not running leaded race fuel. All of my numbers are on pump ethanol. I go. There's a pump about 45 minutes from me. I go and get 10 gallons worth, 10 gallons extra worth, fill the car up, and that's it. You know, those numbers the other day that I did, I just mixed it to like 60% because I had 93 in it for a while because the car was sitting. I was like, oh, 60%, that's good. Send it. I was like, whatever, man. Like, could I put some leaded ethanol in there and maybe put 22 degrees of timing in it? Sure, probably. You know, I just go do that. I don't need to run leaded fuels because I don't have high compression. I just have a 10.5 to 1. It's a decent compression, but it's not high compression. People talk much about inlet diameter versus airspeed and how it affects spool and choke through the environment and entire power band. And does the 4-inch pipe and the spool just ain't the same up top? So here's the thing. The inlet, right? The 4-inch inlet, right? You're doing that. It actually doesn't, what it does is it moves everything down. So whatever the turbo can do power-wise, you're moving that down. So if your inlet can move the air, you can't move the air, you're going to find your car's going to spool a little bit lazier, and it's going to take more RPM to make the power. But if your inlet is the restriction, and you put a better sized inlet on it, you'll pick up everything will move to the left. Torque, horsepower, but your peak might not change that much. So, that's pretty typical. It's pretty commonplace for that. And thinking that no inlet is better, it's actually worse because there's no directing of the air to keep the airstream going into the turbo clean. So when you don't have an inlet, you're going to make your mid-range power worse, especially the more boost you throw at it. Plus, you're pulling in hot air. The fact of feeling the high RPM being different, that could very well be that the tune needs to be changed, or that the high RPM doesn't feel as good because you've moved everything to the left, so you made the power earlier, so your high RPM feels like it's falling off. Oh, and I want to say something I saw, and maybe you guys have seen on the Type R pages, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but this poor guy, all right, and there's nothing wrong with the G30E825. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. This poor guy, wait, no, he's in here. His turbine was glowing bright red after just driving. Sorry, I forget his name right now. My brain is so tired. I'm like, what is going on here, guys? Look, I'm all for trying things. I totally am. But man, wow. And here's my thing. Honda, and I'm not going to get into the details, but what I'm going to say is Honda makes it too easy sometimes. Okay? And when you have check boxes, it makes it too easy for people who don't have a full understanding to delve into tuning cars. And that's all I'm going to say on that matter. There was nothing wrong with the car itself, all right, or the parts selection in the car. That's all I'm going to say. And there's more than one person with a glowing red turbine housing out there. What's good VTEC point for stock turbo FK8? What cams? Because you technically could put TR2s in one. Well, let's look at it this way. These cars are exhaust driven, okay, for VTEC. And the stock setting is good for stock turbo. But when it comes down to uh, when it comes, no blend, yeah, no blend. When it comes down to like TR2s, uh, generally speaking, this is pretty common where the like tier threes and tier threes, the VTEC crossover doesn't move as much from turbo to turbo. Um, Unless you can't come up on boost. So, and the reason being is it's got to do with how you're driving the turbo and the amount of exhaust gases coming out of the valve. So, um, I don't want to give away too much. All I'm going to say is there are things that give you data points for VTEC crossover point in the current software that let you know what's good and bad when using the factory wastegate, okay? Or any type of electronic wastegate. Um, it's a little bit harder to tell for VTEC crossover when you are using a traditional mechanical valve wastegate. However, that can also give you signs on a turbo car. On a naturally aspirated car, good luck. You need a dyno. Exhaust housing enabled an earlier VTEC point due to less back pressure. No, um, that's actually kind of backwards. Um, it's actually the kind of the reverse because you have less back pressure on that side. VTEC deals with exhaust. If you open it too early, you get exhaust reversion and low exhaust air speeds coming out of the cylinder. It's about matching the exhaust outlet out of the cylinder through the turbo. And the electronic wastegate does a really good job of giving information. Um, the other way, it's a combination of fuel consumption, knock noise, electronic wastegate. There's a lot of those things that kind of show you where the VTEC goes, and you're going to get it pretty close. Will you get a perfect flat crossover? Maybe not, but there's a lot of information that happens. Like, you're going to see volumetric efficiency changes on crossover, fuel consumption changes, knock noise. In Motec, it's a much easier. I could put a VTEC crossover in Motec, and I could be like, we could put it up on a dyno, be like, yep, that was right. You know, because so much changes, and it's different because a lot on this car because you're dealing with a turbo car and you open up the exhaust valve for longer, you're changing the pressure inside the cylinder, you're changing the pressure out of the turbo, you're changing the exhaust velocity out, and even when you port the head, you can end up moving it around a little bit. That's going to possibly change it. Like if you put a really big camshaft, like, so for reference on a 4-piston head and a TR3 cam, the VTEC crossover is pretty much identical, whether it's a TR3, whether it's a MHI Stage 2 or a G3900. The VTEC crossovers at the same point. And those two turbos are way different. Like, way, way different. So, you need to think about that in that aspect, like, but again, you're using the same cylinder head between two cars. So you're dealing with exhaust velocity out of the cylinder head. And if you open it up and the valve's open too long, you get reversion or maybe vent off the combustion too soon. So, like, there's a lot going on. And also, your exhaust cam timing in reference with your VTEC crossover plays a role because you can end up moving your VTEC crossover. Let's say you open the exhaust valve earlier. Now you end up having to open your VTEC later because you opened it earlier. Because if you open it earlier, you vent the combustion event instead of taking advantage of it. There's just so much going on in there and all the information, most of the information is there, especially in Motec, man. But coming down to cam timing that makes the most amount of power, that's still going to be a dyno thing. Variable geometry turbos have a lot of failure points, and the reason you're using a variable geometry turbo in a diesel is the fact that they just don't have any RPM, and they don't have VTEC. You don't have VTEC in a diesel, you know. Generally, you don't. I don't think you even have VVT, like variable valve timing, at all. I don't know of any diesel that does. So, variable geometry turbos are used in diesels for that reason. And plus, they're very large displacement, so it would make it very difficult to have one turbo spool early and make power like everywhere. They are usable in diesels though. I don't like the failure points, and I think turbo technologies come along along the way. Oh, some turbo for the Ultima? I don't think so. They did the variable displacement, or variable compression, I should say, where they had that stupid, like, double crankshaft. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem, buddy. Answer the VTC setup, right? Yeah, VTEC versus stock setup. Yep. I generally don't change that all too much, man. It's usually pretty, from the factory, the VTEC's pretty good, man. At least on the modern cars. Older, I'll say it's about older Hondas, usually you just open it earlier. So Angelito Tomb just said an absolutely valuable point. Some people think that a base map can be uploaded, that a base map tunes are meant to go, just rip on it. There's a file, I think it needs to be revised, that puts 12, we went over this in the beginning with the whole chat GPT tuning car, telling you to put 16 degrees of timing in it on 93. And the thing is, this file, while it doesn't put a lot of boost in it, it puts 12 degrees of timing in the high RPM range on 91 octane. And I'm going to tell you guys, I don't go above 7 degrees. I throw a little more boost at it, yeah, because it's pump gas and less timing. That's what works, right? Ethanol, man, guys, it's the other way around. Ethanol is the other way around, bro. Like, don't worry about all that boost on the planet, bro. Get that timing in that bitch. Like, it's really that simple. The ethanol fuel is like, it's a different animal. You're not trying to cram more boost in it. You're trying to cram more timing in ethanol. You throw more boost at it, your setup's just less efficient. You want the higher efficiency area. It makes so much, it just works so much better. Time is it? Damn, it's 9:52. I spent a long, busy live. Whew-wee. Well, listen, that's a lot of time for me. I'm exhausted. My little buddy up back there in his brand new bed, he's exhausted. Well, he's out cold. Damn, ain't too cute. And bloodshot eyes like, Dad, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Almost forgot, one of my buddy's cars wouldn't start. All I did was unplug the Honda and it started. The Honda won't light up when connected to the car, but it does when on the laptop. That is strange. So here's what I would do. I would make sure you're updated to the latest firmware and see what happens. Knock level percentage does not that knock level number is essentially that knock level. So I want to clarify what that is before I go. Thank you for the having a nice night. The knock level number in Honda is a level of desensitization of the knock table. If you're driving around, that number is lower, and as you load up the car, that number is supposed to climb. There's a glitch in the software right now that goes, I don't know what the hell that's going on there. Never used to do that, but it's got some from the mic. I don't know. I don't know if that thing even works. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. I'm sure we'll catch up. Have a good night, and see you guys in the next live. All right.